Hey everybody, how are you today? Welcome to Get Ready With Me and Talk About Stuff. So today I'm going to be diving into a subject that I became more curious about after I posted some things on Twitter about the very weird Victorian Christmas cards that I stumbled upon in a Google search. Now, if you haven't figured it out by now, I'm a bit of a nerd when it comes to history and just digging into these odds and ends that, you know, are fascinating to me, but maybe are not necessarily, you know, something that we would learn about otherwise. You know, they're not things that are often discussed. So I thought, after I posted those things, I thought, what is the history of Christmas cards? And so that's what we're going to talk about today. But before we dive into that, how are you? How is your weekend going? It is Sunday. We've only got a few days left before Christmas, if you celebrate Christmas. Some of you celebrate other holidays, and you are right in the middle of celebrating. I just love this time of year. It's just fun. It's festive. I get to spoil people. It's a good time. So are you ready for, Friday? Are you ready for Friday? I am. Because I love to see my son's reactions when he opens his presents. It's my favorite thing in the whole world, because I like to spoil him. Now, there's something he asked for this year that he is getting, but he doesn't know he's getting it, and he, obviously, and he keeps saying to me, Mom, you know, it's really not cool to let somebody get their hopes up about something, and then, you know, if you know for sure they're not going to get it. He's trying to get me to tell him if he's getting this item or not, and I refuse. So it'll be fun to see him open it on Christmas Day and be wonderfully surprised. So anyway, now that that's all out of the way, let's get into the subject at hand. So a few days ago, as I said, on Twitter and on Facebook, actually, I posted some pictures of these very odd Victorian Christmas cards, and someone asked me if there is a history behind them. And there is, as there's a history behind everything. So as I was reading on the history, though, I thought this is really kind of cool. So I decided I would share that history with you, my wonderful viewers. If you're new to this channel, by the way, I forgot to say this, my name is Stephanie. At least I think I forgot to say that. I probably did. My name is Stephanie, and I'm just doing my makeup because it gives me something to do while I chat with you. This is not a makeup tutorial. It's just something to keep me busy, because I would feel I'd feel kind of dumb just sitting here talking into a camera for, you know, a half hour or whatever. So this is keeping me occupied. So anyway, Christmas cards or holiday cards. They haven't been around as long as one might think. I went back into the history of them, and 1843 was when we saw the very first Christmas card ever. The very first Christmas card came about because a man in Great Britain, as it was known at the time, I don't think it was the UK yet, he was a very well-known educator. He was a patron of the arts. He had a lot of people contacting him all the time, and his name was Henry Cole. And in 1843, he got a massive amount of letters at the holidays. And at the time, it was considered extremely rude to not respond to written correspondence. It's not like today, if you get an email and it sits for a few days, people are like, you know, it's kind of rude, but whatever. I mean, this could have serious social consequences for him if he were to just decide, I'm just not going to reply because I'm getting too many letters and I can't keep up. So he had to think of a way to stay in touch, you know, to respond to all the letters he was getting, but do so in a timely manner, because he really did not have the time to just sit down and write 1,000 letters. So he was thinking on this, and it's worth noting that this man, Henry Cole, was the founder of the Albert and Victoria Museum in London. So this was a man who was well connected. He was a patron of the arts. He had high social standing. He was a very prominent figure. And because he was so well connected, he was able to execute his idea pretty quickly. So what he did was he contacted an artist, J.C. Horsley, I believe is the name. Hold on. As per usual, I have to, yes, J.C. Horsley. And he said, he explained to him what his concept was for what he wanted to do, and kind of sketched out an idea with him of what he wanted the card to look like. And J.C. Horsley actually created the drawing and gave the world its first Christmas card. So Henry Cole ordered like 1,000 printings of this. Printing was pretty cheap, and it was easy to order the large quantities that he needed at a relatively small price. So he had 1,000 printed, and the way the card was designed was at the top it said to, and then had a blank space, so he could personalize the cards in that way and send them out. So he could send out a Christmas greeting, and he could keep up with his correspondence. 2 birds, 1 stone, absolutely awesome, yay. However, it was not without controversy. The card, as you can see in the picture, featured a family around a table, obviously having a holiday feast, and there were little children in the picture who appeared to be partaking of alcohol along with their parents and their older siblings. Now, at the time, there was a big movement for temperance. People were trying to steer society away from alcohol, and when they saw the card, they were actually angry because they felt that it was encouraging people to drink. So, of course, it's kind of like today's 1 Million Moms. That group drives me absolutely crazy. They get angry over the dumbest of things, and then they expect everyone else to be angry with them, and then they wonder why no one takes them seriously. That's kind of how I see this, but of course, having not been alive at the time, I really can't put it into the context of that time. I just know how it looks to me now, and it looks ridiculous. So there was controversy, and of course noise was made, but that did nothing to quell the popularity of this concept of having a card to send out at the holidays. It was so well received that by the next year, there were people who were actually copying what Henry Cole had done, and they started sending out their own holiday greetings. I believe they used even the same picture and just followed suit because it was such an easy way to keep in touch with people you wanted to keep in touch with, but also not have to sit down and write a ton of letters. Now, it would still be a long time, though, before Christmas cards or holiday cards as a tradition would be adopted. What helped, though, and I forgot to mention this, what helped was the penny post. In Great Britain, they had done some reform in their postage, their postal service. So they had the penny post, which meant you could send a postcard or a letter anywhere within the country for 1 penny, as long as you affixed the penny stamp to your piece of mail. That revolutionized how often people were writing. It revolutionized, obviously, the number of letters people were receiving. And it just made it a whole lot easier. So between the penny post and this new invention of Christmas cards, the concept was growing in popularity, but it would, like I said, it would be quite some time before it became a standard holiday tradition to send out cards every year. The United States did not get its first Christmas card until 1875, and that is when a man, a Prussian immigrant by the name of Louis Prang, created the first Christmas card. And just like its predecessor, it was more or less a postcard that you could write a personalized message on and then send it out. And here's the funny part to me. So Louis Prang, had a printing shop near Boston. And what's funny to me is that if you watched my video from a week or so ago about the war on Christmas, you know that in Massachusetts, once upon a time, Christmas was actually outlawed. You couldn't celebrate it. So to me, it's a beautiful twist of irony that the first American-made Christmas card happened near Boston. That's hilarious to me. And I love it. I love things like that. So we got the first Christmas card in 1875. But even then, you know, Christmas, it's important to understand, Christmas then was not what Christmas is today. Christmas today is just all out, let's be honest, it's kind of ridiculous, the lengths that our society goes to celebrate Christmas. I mean, it's just, it's a wild time, this time of year. Back then, though, it wasn't, you know, people celebrated, but it wasn't like this massive event like it is today. It was very family oriented. It was a much quieter occasion. It was still a time for fun and, you know, sharing and, you know, sharing meals together and so forth, but it wasn't what it is today. So even with that, it still took a little bit of time for the concept to catch on. Now, we've all seen the Victorian cards, or at least most of us have, I think, and there has been the question, why are these cards so weird? So what happened after Mr. Prang developed the first Christmas card in the United States? It caught on eventually. People loved it. And so all these card publishers started, you know, they just started making cards. Now what they did, though, because they had such an abundance of images on hand that they used for other occasions, they started applying those images to their Christmas cards and just putting a Christmas or a holiday message on the card. So that is why, I mean, and I kind of wished that there was like a deeper explanation for it. I'll be honest with you, I was somewhat disappointed when I looked into why these weird cards are there and found out it was mostly because they were just reused images. I mean, the first Christmas card in the United States wasn't, you know, what we would consider Christmassy at all. It was a picture, a beautiful drawing, or a beautiful painting of a flower. I mean, it was gorgeous. And it said, Merry Christmas to you. It is a beautiful painting, but it is not what we would consider Christmassy. And that theme somewhat held through the Victorian era. So when you see these pictures that, for, you know, the nature scenes and so forth that maybe don't necessarily feel like Christmas, that's part of the reason. Now there are the outright weird ones, and it's important to know that they're only weird to us. At the time, those were considered very funny. That was Victorian humor. You know, if you see a child being boiled alive in a cauldron, that's hilarious. Or if you see a roast beef come to life and talking to you, awesome. So funny. I mean, we look at it now and we think, God, that's so weird. Like, who does that? Well, I'll tell you who does that. Victorian era people did that. And, you know, it's funny because Victorian era people have a reputation for not being funny. But they really were. They had an excellent sense of humor. It's just that it didn't always translate well in black and white photographs or, you know, the written works of the time. But Victorian humor is actually quite funny if you know what you're looking at. So anyway, card giving caught on to such an extent that, and the artistry was celebrated. If you read the messages on Victorian Christmas cards, they're nothing extraordinary. I mean, it's Merry Christmas to you, or a happiest New Year to you. Nothing like that would really make you think, wow, that's profound. No, it's the artistry. And the artistry was such a prominent part of the Victorian Christmas card that collecting Christmas cards simply for the artistry was actually a hobby people had. Like, I remember when I was a kid and collecting stickers. was the thing. Did any of you do that? Did you have a sticker book? I had a sticker book because I just thought stickers were awesome. And, well, because they are awesome. Let's be real about that. Stickers are really cool. But, so people collected these Christmas cards like others might collect coins or stamps. And there are still a few scrapbooks of nothing but Christmas cards laying around. I hope they're being well taken care of because those are awesome. So you've got the weirdness, you've got the nature scenes. There really was not an established Christmas aesthetic at the time. So images were reused, strange images were made. Oddly enough, despite what some people would have us believe, the Christmas celebration at the time was not really very religious. It didn't, you know, you're not going to find Victorian Christmas cards with nativity scenes on them. You're just not. That is something that would be very rare. That would be the odd thing, not the weird stuff and the nature stuff that we find. The weirdness would be finding a nativity on a Victorian Christmas card. And it's interesting how much has changed since then, because somewhere along the way, and I don't really know when this happened because I guess I didn't research it enough, but somewhere along the way, what was originally celebrated as mostly just a family holiday, just a time to have some fun and enjoy each other and eat good food, somewhere along the way it became a religious thing to some people, and those people who celebrated it that way really somewhere decided it was worth their time to be offended that not everyone celebrated the same way they do, which is so strange. And it's such a problem every stinking year. If you follow me on Facebook, I do an annual thing where I write letters about the quote war on Christmas, and they're supposed to, you know, they come off like it's somebody writing from the battlefront, because I just think the war on Christmas idea is so ridiculous, especially because if you go back and look at historically how, especially in the United States, how Christmas as we know it now evolved, it was never really a religious holiday. It was never really so much intended to be, at least not to the degree that it is now. So it's a very interesting history. And in that history, I think, is reflected in the cards. Just read your cards. Get a reading. Anyway, that was a really bad joke. But anyway, so through the Victorian era, you had basically small publishers creating these cards. And the publishers, to get new art, because they knew the competition was fierce, because it, you know, the idea of Christmas cards was really starting to take hold by the late 1800s. They would actually have contests with cash prizes for people to submit their artwork for use by the company to make unique Christmas cards. And boy, are they unique. Christmas cards, as we know them now, really didn't have their start until 1915. And that was when a man who, his name was Joyce Hall, and he owned a print shop, and he made postcards. And he invited his brothers, Raleigh and William, to join him in this endeavor. And they started making greeting cards, specifically Christmas cards. They adopted the standard format, what we know now, what a card looks like now. The card is 4x6. It's folded in half to create a 4x6 card. So it's a piece of cardstock folded once, stuffed into an envelope, and that is pretty much the standard that we have today. 4x6 is a pretty standard size. So he and his brothers started making these Christmas cards, and the reason they started making them was because they realized that people wanted to keep in touch with each other. That was never a question. People did want a way to keep in touch, but a lot of people did not really want to have to write a whole letter, but a postcard didn't provide enough room. So it was like, where is the middle ground? So they started making these cards, and a decade later, they changed their name to Hallmark. Isn't that wild? So it was the company we know today as Hallmark actually had its beginnings in a small postcard printing company in Kansas City, and now it is what we know today as Hallmark. Hallmark would eventually create what would become I do this every time, the best-selling Christmas card of all time. It's called Three Little Angels, and it was created in 1977, and it just came with a very simple message. So what you had was a row of 3 angels, and 2 of them have their heads bowed in prayer. They're looking very reverent. The third one, her halo is askew, she's glancing up, she's not praying, and it said the simple message of God bless you, keep you, and love you at Christmas time and always. This card absolutely took off. It has been in production ever since, and the message has changed, but the image itself is what draws people, and it has sold at this point over probably over 40 million copies of this card have been sold. So the Hallmark, or the Hall brothers, knew what they were doing when they decided that it was time to make greeting cards the standard instead of postcards. I don't even remember the last time I received a postcard from someone, let alone I couldn't imagine receiving them all the time. I couldn't imagine that being the standard, but of course once upon a time it was. So the greeting card industry is not as old as we might think, and the Christmas card tradition is still, you know, it's an evolving idea. Most of the companies that are successful with Christmas cards today are small publishers that have found a market, like a niche market, and they sell to smaller gift shops. They have limited production of Christmas cards, and so if you get one of these cards, it's actually something really kind of extraordinary because they are so small in number. I have a friend on Facebook who, hi Jaden, who started a company just this holiday season actually called the Little Gay Gift Shop, and she markets to LGBTQ people or LGBTQ allies, and her cards are adorable, and those are the kind of cards that people are looking for these days. They're not looking for the mass-produced boxed cards. Some people do it, sure, but the people who really want to make an impression on the person that they're sending a card to are more and more going for the small producers who create limited quantities and who sell to specific markets. As well, a lot of the sentiments in the cards are changing. Once upon a time, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year or Happy Holidays, that was the standard, and that's what people went with. More and more, though, people are aiming their messages at younger shoppers and really wanting to send a message that is more relevant to younger people. Why is that? Well, I don't know. Why is that? I honestly think that younger people are more apt to send handwritten stuff than older people. And you might be thinking, well, I haven't received a handwritten letter from anybody in a long time. Well, neither have I, but I have noticed just in conversation and in observation that younger people seem to have an understanding that it's important to invest in the old ways of doing things sometimes, and that handmade stuff, handwritten stuff, etc. holds a lot of value to someone that you care about.
Not me. I'm a brain-dead potato.
Oh, okay. My son said not him. He's a brain-dead potato. And that's truly unfortunate. I don't know why that is something to talk about, but okay. So a lot of the smaller producers of greeting cards are aiming their messages at the younger generations because, I I guess younger people are more apt to buy the cards and use them. When I was younger, when I was in my 20s, I wrote letters and sent cards constantly. I loved it. I loved sending handwritten letters. I loved buying cards. I would go to Borders, Books, and Music because they had the best selection of really quirky cards, and I couldn't find them anywhere else, definitely not at Hallmark. And I would spend so much time looking for the perfect card to give to whomever I was writing to. And I always heard from my friends that I wrote to, I love getting mail from you because you put so much time into it. You decorate the envelopes. You really take your time with what you write on inside. And I just love getting mail from you. And I miss that. That being said, I don't send out Christmas cards. Do you send out Christmas cards? How many do you send out? What warrants getting a Christmas card from you? I'm genuinely curious because most people I know don't send them, which is, I don't know. I don't know if that's good or bad. Why are we losing touch with those things? Anyway, I'm going to finish up. I will be right back. All right, I am back. So, in 1962, the Christmas card phenomenon really, it really went up a level when the U.S. Postal Service released its first ever Christmas stamp. Originally, the U.S. Postal Service ordered 350 million of these stamps, but they sold out so quickly that they had to do emergency printings of them, and by the end of the year, the U.S. Postal Service had sold 1 billion Christmas stamps. And the 1962 Christmas stamp was very simple. It was a wreath and 2 candles, and it just said Christmas 1962, and people lost their minds over it. So that is the history of Christmas cards. It's an interesting history to me. Maybe not the most fascinating tidbit of history that I've ever shared with you, but it's interesting to me. It's interesting to see how these traditions develop, and also how things that we're told have been traditions since forever, such as making the Christmas Christmas celebration a religious one. You know, speaking to some people, you'd get the impression that Christmas has always been a religious celebration and only recently has been secularized, and that just isn't true. Christmas, in many ways, started as a secular celebration because it was simply Saturnalia hijacked basically to make it into something Christian. But it remained a secular celebration for a very long time, and it's only been in the relatively recent past that it was turned into something religious, which is very interesting to me. So anyway, I hope that entertained you a little bit, gave you a whole bunch of knowledge you'll never have any reason whatsoever to use, but you might be able to just pass it along and impress people. I don't know. I don't know what you do with the things I share with you, but I hope they entertain you. If you liked it, please leave a comment, let me know your thoughts. Please share my videos. That really helps me a lot. And if you are watching and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. That also helps me. If you'd like to support future content, you can support me through Patreon and a few other places that I will list in the description. And I can continue bringing you great content through 2021 and beyond. All right, have a great day. I hope you're doing really well, taking it easy, being kind to yourself and being kind to other people. Please wear a mask if you go out and practice good social distancing. When you can stay home, please stay home. We are almost through. I'm hoping we're almost through the very worst of this awful pandemic, and there is hope on the horizon. But until we're through it, we've got to continue being careful. So please be careful out there. Don't should on yourself. Don't should on anyone else. And I will talk with you again real soon. Bye.